Please welcome the co-founder and CTO with Duda, Mr. Amir Glat. Oh, there you are.
Okay, hello everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for coming. So I want to talk today about websites and apps and how websites are becoming more like apps and why it is important for small businesses. So yeah, let's get started. So just like before I get started into this topic, just one slide about Duda, who we are. Yeah, let me get this clicker going. Okay, great. So who is Duda? Duda, we are one of the leading website builders. Our customers are mainly hosting companies and other web professionals. We are around 75 people, located in Palo Alto, Tel Aviv, Colorado, and London. And I think we have quite a few customers here in the audience, 1&1, 123 Reg, and others. So this is Duda, this is what we do. And as I said, I want to talk today about a topic which is a pretty old one. This is a topic about apps or websites. So we started, Itai and I, we started Duda 8 years ago. And I think from the beginning, it was always the question, should you go with a website or should you go with an app when you're talking about mobile? And when we think about small businesses, they had those two options. They still have those two options, whether I go with a mobile website or responsive website, or whether I build an app for my business. So let's think about it for a second, because both of those options are very, very valid, and each of those really have pros and cons. So let's talk first about websites. And when we are talking about websites, we are talking mainly responsive or mobile-friendly websites, right? So first, customers love websites, right? It's kind of I call it bread and butter. So websites are the second most used media by consumers looking to engage after search engine. Second, this is pretty cool. 79% of small businesses today, they claim that their website is mobile-friendly. It's a very, very big shift from what we used to have, let's say, 5 years ago. So 79%. So it means that, everyone understands that a mobile website is a must. It's the bread and butter. You can't have business online without your site looking good on mobile. That's great. We know that 57% of internet users say they wouldn't recommend a business with a poorly designed mobile website. And we know when we have all the stats from Google how soon people are abandoning your site if it's not mobile friendly and fast to launch. And mobile devices today are getting the vast of the traffic. So we look at statistics that we have on Duda sites, and as of today, mobile plus tablet traffic is around 65%. Where desktop traffic is 35%, and we are talking here worldwide, and I think it looks pretty similar between Europe and the US and other countries. So it's definitely the vast majority of traffic is coming from mobile. So I think we all understand that mobile websites is important and everyone are doing that. That's great. But the problem with mobile websites, at least until recently, is that they have problems. So what are the problems of mobile websites? We know when we compare websites to apps, we all know there's still a gap. What's the gap? Limited functionality, right? You don't have access to the device capabilities, things the camera and the GPS and accelerator and all those kind of stuff. That's one. Second, internet connection is always required, right? If you don't have internet connection, your site is simply not loading. While in apps, and we know that for example, you look at the Facebook app, you load it also while you're offline in flight mode. You can still read posts, you can still post. The post will be available when you're online again, and so on. So the experience is very different. And it's not only that you have internet connection or not have internet connection. Many times you have a slow internet connection, right? Even people in the US and in Europe or in Tel Aviv, in many areas you have slow internet connection. This is life. And with websites, it just like, doesn't work well, right? You need to load the entire thing. And I think this is like the main reason that people like build apps. They build apps because the mobile web was simply not good enough, or didn't provide a good enough experience. So this is the problem with like, mobile website. So let's talk a little bit about apps. So what about apps? What's the good thing about apps? So first, rich functionality, like we talked, immersive experience, and offline interactivity. And we know the App Store is very successful, and we have so many apps, and like, obviously, it's true that like we're spending more time in apps versus in websites. The problem is that like most of the time that we spend in apps, we spend something like 5 apps, right? Facebook, Instagram, Google, Twitter, something like that. So what are the problems with apps? This is the first stat is like really, I think it makes sense, but it's still shocking to see. So read that. So majority of US consumers download 0 apps per month on average. And like, when I think about it, it actually does make sense. I'm thinking about like, which new apps did I download in the last month? I don't think I downloaded anything. And if I download, it's definitely not going to be an SMB app, right? It's maybe like a communication tool or a new game or something like that. It's not going to be like, an app for a restaurant or a plumber or a dentist or a yoga class or all of those. So this is like a big deal in terms of reach. Then building an app is like still much more expensive than building a website. We all know that. Part of the reason is that like you got to have like 2 apps, at least iOS and Android, right? The market is really split almost 50% in terms of traffic, depends on the location. So you got to do it twice, and you need to pay like, usually like, expensive developers. Submitting an app to the App Store is painful, and you're in the mercy of like the App Store rules, not only when you're first submitting it, but also like when you want to make an update. And 1 in 4 people abandon mobile apps after only 1 use. So you do all this investment, you got someone to download the app, you use it once, and that's it. And like, all your investment is gone. So these are like real problems, and I think the reality is that we know that SMBs are not building lots of apps because of those reasons. Recently, SMB apps really hit a brick wall. So what happened? And you can see now like here a screenshot from an article that Apple decided to ban what they call templatized apps. So think about an SMB. We said it's like expensive to build an app. So there are like few services that allowed you to build an app as a drag and drop tool, right? You build an app, you drag like contact us, and you drag gallery, and all of those kind of things. Great, and they somehow managed to like automate the submission to the App Store. So Apple is saying no more. We don't want those apps. Those apps are not providing enough value, and they simply ban them. And this is like interesting, like, when Itai and I, we started Duda, we always asked, hey, why don't you do apps? Why just websites? And we thought, hey, we don't want to be in the mercy of Apple changing the rules of the game, and this is exactly what's happening today. So here we are, websites are a must, everyone are doing websites. Apps for small businesses, it's not really like the way to go, and apps and websites are like, have limited functionality. So what does it mean? So does it mean that like, app-loving SMBs are stuck with static websites with limited functionality? So that's like, the future of the internet? So what do you think? Luckily, no way. So that's what I want to talk about, how websites today are learning to act like apps. So luckily we have Google, and Google really want to push the open internet and want to push like, mobile websites. And they came up with like a recent technology that is called PWA. PWA stands for Progressive Web Apps, which means giving websites on mobile capabilities of apps to basically close the bridge between website and apps. And I'm very, very proud to announce that as of like, a few days ago, every site that is being built on the Duda platform has support for PWA. So every site, without you needed to do anything, has the support of PWA. It's very, very exciting. And I want to show you what does it mean, PWA, in a few examples. So let's start. This is kind of before we start to do any PWA-related thing, it has to be like, on SSL. It has to be, the connection has to be secure. This is a requirement that Google put, like, very early on. Only sites with SSL connection can use progressive web apps feature. Duda, we provide free automated SSL using Let's Encrypt integration for, I think, like 2 years now or so. I don't know if there are people in the room still making money from SSL. I think it's like those days are almost over. Google Chrome are going to show a non-secure message for any website, I think in a month or so. Probably the next step is going to show like a red message. So SSL is like a must, and of course we are taking care of it. Okay, so now that we have SSL, what can we do with PWA? Okay, so the first thing, which is like really, really big, is caching and offline support. So PWA, in the heart of PWA, there is something that is called a service worker. So what is a service worker? A service worker is a piece of JavaScript code that you can add to your site. And this code is being, like the mobile operating system is running this code even when your site is not like online. And this code can now like use caching and can use other things that like usually native apps have and mobile and websites don't have. So thanks to this like service worker, what we can do, we can really cache content of websites on the device. This is different than the browser cache, if you know the browser cache. It's a dedicated cache that you can cache content, images, full HTML, JavaScript, every web resources that you are using. And this cache is available also when you're offline or whenever you need it. So as a result of doing that, now that when you go to your mobile device and you browse to a site, when you launch the site again and nothing changed there, the content will be retrieved from the cache, will give you a very, very fast experience. And even if you're offline in a flight or anything like that, you can still go and browse the site, which is a huge thing and a big difference compared to websites without cache. So in addition, on top of this functionality, Service Worker providing additional functionality. For example, push notifications. Like push notifications that we know from apps is also available to websites through this Service Worker technology. And we know that Google and the industry are planning to add more functionality to that. The second thing, which is also pretty cool, right? One of the cool things about apps is that you can launch them from the home screen easily. So what progressive web apps and what we have now is a way to add a site to the home screen, but not only a way to add, but also like a prompt for the user to simply add it to the home screen and then launch it as an app. Please look at the GIF that I'm starting now. So here you can see the add to home screen button. Once I click on it, it's being added to the home screen, and from the home screen, I can now launch it and have it just like an app, like we're used from an app. This is really, really cool. You can control the image, the name, the stuff that you want to have there, and the fact that the browser is suggesting you to install it as an app is a very, very big deal. So think about a small business now having a website that he built by himself, using a drag and drop tool, sending to the customers, the customer getting a message, adding it, and now we have an app with fraction of the cost, and of course all the advantages of websites. A few other things that are not specifically PWA, but are very much related to the topic of bridging the gap between website and apps. Websites, and this is for quite some time, can access the GPS of the device. I don't know if you knew that, through JavaScript. One of the use cases that we use in Duda for that feature is our multi-location widget. So if you are let's say a restaurant with multiple locations, and you want the customer to find the nearest location from his current location, he can simply click on a button, find nearest location. The browser will ask permission to use the device GPS, and you will get that automatically. So very, very cool functionality that can be done with websites. Another thing which is really cool is access to the device camera and photos. So for example, in Duda, we integrated it into our form. So let's say that you want to build a form, and part of the form is to upload files or upload images. You can just click upload file. It will open the device images just like we're used to when using WhatsApp or other apps as well. So these are like, few of the PWA advantages that we just released. But the cool thing is that this is building on top of the advantages of websites that we know, and that Duda is really providing. So first, great out-of-the-box SEO and discoverability, the biggest problem of apps. Automatic Google page speed optimization to ensure that the initial website rendering is as quickly as possible. So why is it important? So we talked about PWA, they're really helping with the second visit and the third visit, right? By caching content and all of that. But like the initial visit has to be like really fast. And this is usually like the biggest problem with apps, right? Until you download it and until you open it and so on. So this is the key. And rich analytics and detailed user data. Google PageSpeed is just a screenshot from one of the Duda websites, something that we worked really hard and I'm proud of. We are well above 90 on average of score of Google PageSpeed to make sure that sites are loaded quickly. So, what does the future hold for hosts and their SMB customers? So one, who's behind it? Google is behind it. Google, as I said, is really pushing it. And they are pushing like the ecosystem to improve and provide that type of functionality. So that's one. Second, which is really important, the big elephant in the room usually used to be like Apple. So Apple, holds 50% of the market, and traditionally didn't really make those changes or basically build this technology. But not anymore. This is really, really good news. And so funny, in iOS 11.3, which is the next version, I already have it on my device in the beta version. Apple are supporting service workers, including all the offline and caching capabilities that I told you about. I'm saying that it's funny because people just noticed a few commits in GitHub in the WebKit project and started to tweet about it that, yeah, Apple is now going to support service workers and PWA, and it's a really, really good news for the industry that it is becoming a standard and not just like a Google thing. And we can see as a result that all of the stuff that I talked about are becoming W3C standards. So this is becoming part of the standards, and everyone are going to support it. And I think when they do, you really want to partner with a company that is ahead of the curve and think about the next steps of innovation in web design. And that's what we really try to do in Duda. So now this is really my exciting part. I'm really happy to invite Joachim Ritter. So Joachim is the head of development in 1&1, our biggest partner, to talk a little bit about how they use this technology and how the partnership with Duda is going overall. So please, Joachim.
Thank you. Thank you. Want to get the clicker?
Yeah.
Thanks. So welcome everyone. Last night at the bar, one of those guys turned towards me who gets philosophical when he drinks beer. And he said a very true statement. He said, today is not tomorrow. Very true statement. And I think what he really intended to say was innovation is never going to be as slow as it is today. So we are glad to have a partner like Duda, pulling all that great innovation into our customer base. So let me give you a few. I'm working here. Yes, there we are. So PWA, what does that mean to 1&1? Obviously, one of the big advantages is speed, and Amir, touched on that. And we have a great performance on our websites for our customers already. They rank at some 95 on average in Google PageSpeed, and now it's even getting faster, and that makes a big difference for our customers. So we like that a lot and appreciate that PWA is now part of our customer experience. The integration aspect of PWA is also very interesting to us, and I'll talk about integration more in depth in a minute. So the use case of having a push channel from our customers to their customers is really interesting. And when we prepared for this, I realized I have actually a couple of apps on my phone, small business apps. One of them is a real estate agent, who promotes new objects that he's selling. And I'm looking for a house, by the way. So I downloaded this app just for the sake of getting the push channel in place. So at 1&1, we are really after an integrated small business experience, and we are looking at PWA to see if we can make that push channel available for our customers. So before we talk about the partnership, let me tell you, in a nutshell, what we are actually doing at 1&1. So we are setting out, the small business part of 1&1 is setting out to create a complete new experience for small businesses. And we are actually tapping out of us being a hoster into being a digital partner for small businesses. And that's a whole difference. And the way we do that is we need to expand our portfolio of applications. That's one thing. And we are actually betting on partners. We are selecting the best partners per use case, one partner per use case, and integrate that into our environment. And in contrast to other competitors, we actually want our partners to be innovative and remain independent, to really drive innovation into these use cases. And what we do is we integrate them and then add value on top of it by integrating it onto our platform and providing seamless user experiences across all the different applications. That's our pitch. And yeah, we are glad to have multiple great partners in our portfolio already. It's a growing portfolio of partners. One obviously being Duda. We are into the game since a year. We have already tons times X, 10x I'd say, customers on that platform. Pretty tight relationship. It's still fun to work with them. And we actually also use the open API framework of Duda to add additional assets on top of it, like industry content and templates, applications, and so forth. So it's pretty good and solid partnership. And thank you for having me invited on this stage. Thank you all. I think that was it. Amir?
Yeah, I just have the closing slide.
You still have slides? Go back to his presentation. He wants to finish.
Yeah, sorry guys. So just like the last slide, if any of you here in the audience is interested to see a live demo of everything that I just talked about here, to see how it works, is more than welcome to visit us in our booth. I don't remember the number of it. It's on the slide, but it's in the middle of the exhibition, so you'll find us.
Which one? F6.
F6, if you want to see a demo.
Wherever that is. Oh, there's your last slide.
All right. Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Amir, and of course Joachim as well. Thank you.